Hello YouTube world, Pretend Farmer here. Not a real farmer, just pretending. In this video we want to take a little bit of time to talk about a subject we've never discussed here on the Pretend Farm. Bumblefoot. We're going to talk about what Bumblefoot is and how to prevent it. Now I'm thankful to be able to say that we've had chickens for over 2 years here on the Pretend Farm. We've never had to deal with a case of Bumblefoot. So this is something that's not super uncommon, but at the same time, if you follow preventative measures, it can be pretty rare. You shouldn't have to deal with it much in your flock. So what is Bumblefoot? Bumblefoot is an infection that chickens get in their feet. Essentially, it is a staph infection. We know from hospitals and stuff that staph is everywhere, the bacteria is everywhere, and chickens are susceptible to this, oftentimes especially when they get cuts or abrasions in their feet. Chickens are oftentimes confined to a run, or in the coop they're walking over litter. That's stuff that all carries bacteria and it can mess up their feet. So how do you know your chicken has Bumblefoot then? Well, a lot of times the only symptom you'll notice really is the chicken might be limping a little bit, walking kind of funny. It's not a bad idea to try and pick up your chickens, maybe even off the roost bar at night if you can't catch them during the daytime, and just do foot inspections. Make sure you don't have problems. If a chicken has Bumblefoot, there's going to be kind of a bulge or a lump on the foot, usually on the bottom or the pad of the foot. It'll be kind of swollen up in a spot, and that's going to be an obvious red flag that your chicken probably has Bumblefoot. Now, if this is just something that you have one chicken get, you can treat it, life goes on. If you start noticing widespread issues with multiple chickens in your flock getting Bumblefoot, then there's probably some kind of an issue that you need to address. Which leads me into the next topic of prevention. How do we prevent Bumblefoot? How do we prevent these chickens from getting their feet infected? Well, first of all, you want to feed your chickens good feed. You know, something that's going to give them all the nutrition that they need, all the vitamins. If chickens have vitamin or health deficiencies, they're going to be a lot less likely to be able to fight off the infection that causes Bumblefoot, and therefore they're going to be more likely to actually have problems with Bumblefoot. The next thing is keeping them off of abrasive surfaces. Chickens that spend a lot of time on concrete or on gravel, people that put down hardware cloth as the floor of their coop. It's great because it keeps things clean and allows stuff to drop through, but it's an abrasive surface that wears on their feet over time. You know, keeping them away from things like this is a great preventative measure. You'd never want to put down gravel in their chicken run. If there's any splinters on their roost bars that can cut their feet, you need to keep an eye out for that. That's one of the real common ways that they get this. Especially since oftentimes roost bars might have a little bit of chicken poop on them. Well, there goes your infection right in their foot. Now, supposedly, if you have obese chickens that are fat, they're putting more pressure on the pads of their feet, and therefore their feet are much more likely to crack open. Especially when you have these fat chickens flopping down off their really high roost bars, slamming down onto the ground where there's litter. Their feet are slamming down into that. It apparently much more vulnerable there. And I didn't know that. They don't even recommend for Bumblefoot. They recommend actually having low roost bars that are like 2 feet high or less, just because really high roost bars, they're crashing down on their feet, and it apparently can wear on their feet over time. Pretend Farmer did not know this until today, because my chickens like to roost on the highest possible spot they can get to, and I put the roost bars up pretty high just because I thought it's what they wanted. So I'm not saying I'm going to change that, but apparently that's a thing. The other big thing is just cleanliness. You want to try and keep their run fairly clean. You want to make sure you're doing cleanings of their coop, regularly shoveling out that litter. And this is another reason, like we've said earlier, we don't do the deep litter method, just because I feel like it is better for preventing, good grief, it's better for preventing things like Bumblefoot. But yes, the run, if you're getting a really rainy season where they're constantly walking in this mucky, muddy run, just spending time in that wet, muddy, wet atmosphere, that can actually cause their feet to crack open. And of course, they're pooping in the run, so there's going to be that bacteria factor there. So a wet, gooey, mucky run is a really good way for your chickens to have a widespread issue with bumblefoot. And this is something that's really hard to control because we can't control the weather. It could rain for a month. Anybody that's had chickens in a run for any period of time, you know they eat all the grass down and it gets muddy. So how do you really stop that, pretend farmer? Well, there's things you can do. When the rain takes a break, throw some lime down. Lime will help dry up the ground and even kill off some bacteria. Another thing is sand. Now, play sand is kind of expensive to buy in the bags, and we don't do a lot of that here on the pretend farm, but in the really heavy traffic areas, you can put down sand, and sand will actually take care of the mud issue, allow the water to sift through, and they're walking on a cleaner, drier surface. So that's another good thought there. As far as how you treat bumblefoot, pretend farmer can't really speak from experience there because we've never had a case of it here. But there's some really good videos on YouTube of people that actually have their chickens with them. They've got bumblefoot and they're treating it and showing you how to treat it right on camera. Essentially what you do is you cut open or you remove that scab that's over the foot where it's swollen, and there's something in there called a kernel. It's kind of like the core of the infection. You need to pull this white looking hard kernel out of the hole in the foot, the wound where the scab's over, and you need to treat it with iodine, maybe a little Neosporin, and then see if you can wrap it some way. You say, well, how in the world do my chickens let me do that? Well, you might have to wrap your chicken in a towel or a blanket or something to kind of help hold them still so you can work on their foot. But you can do this, get the wound cleaned out really good, and especially if you catch it early. Just like with anything, it's easier to treat. And that's why I recommend going in your coop ever so often, popping some chickens off the roost bars, inspecting their feet, making sure everything's staying clean and good looking. You want to see a good looking chicken foot? I'm gonna show you. See, when you pick your chickens up, you want to kind of lace your fingers between your legs. It allows you to kind of invert the chicken, and you can see the feet here. They're clean. There's no cracks, no redness. Just kind of clean, white, smooth pads on their feet. No bulging, no swelling. That's a clean, good-looking chicken foot is what that is. And from a lovely chocolate Orpington. Thank you. You know, if you get a chicken with bumblefoot, it doesn't mean that you have a filthy coop or you did anything wrong. Sometimes they can just slit their foot open on something and infection happens. If you're not comfortable treating it yourself, there are vets that can help. And as always, the vet is probably the best option. But let's face it, we're farmers, or at least pretend farmers. We like to try and do things ourselves. And as I said, there's some really good treatment videos out there. A lot of different methods. I don't know which one works the best because we've never done it. But I'd encourage you to check those out. Browse through YouTube, find one, try the treatment, or take your chicken to a vet. You catch it early, they should make a full recovery. Unfortunately, bumblefoot can be fatal, just like any staph infection. If you don't treat it early and it spreads too far, it can get into the bone, it'll kill the chicken. So make sure you stay on top of this. If only all chickens were as easy to pick up and hold and handle as Miss Molly here, it'd be super easy to check them for bumblefoot. But like I said, chickens go into almost like a comatose type state at nighttime when they're on the roost bars. So with a dim headlamp or a dim flashlight, you can walk in the coop, you can pick up even the wildest, craziest, meanest chicken, and they'll let you handle them with no problems. Keep an eye out for that bumblefoot. Keep your chickens clean, dry, and keep everything abrasion free. And you shouldn't ever have too many problems with your chicken's feet. Till next time, this is the Pretend Farmer, signing out. There you go.